Welcome YouTubers. This is the fourth tutorial in a series of videos dedicated to the HP Reverb G2. Following on from the last tutorial, G2 troubleshooting, this video covers how to set up and replace the G2 controllers with the Valve Index controllers. Welcome to the VR1.co.uk YouTube channel. My name's Pierre, aka Pedro, and in this video I'll be setting up the Valve Index controllers as a replacement of the Reverb G2 controllers. The goal here is to create a video tutorial that's intuitive, so an easy to follow step-by-step guide for both the experienced VR enthusiast as well as the novice. So don't worry if you're new to VR, as I'll do my best to cover every aspect of the setup process, including all the necessary hardware and gadgets required, the software you're going to need, where to download it and how to install it, as well as the setup and configuration. May I also point out that this tutorial is one of many in a series of videos dedicated to the HP Reverb G2. So be sure to check out the other tutorials, giving a thumbs up if you like them and subscribing to our channel, not forgetting to click on the bell icon should you want to be notified of future content. Also, should you want to skip to a different section of this video, I've provided timestamp links in the description below. Before I get started, I'd like to give a big thank you to all the dedicated VR enthusiasts out there. So a big thanks to Pumpkin Spice, Monster Max 77, Tetracyclic and the Avaras team for providing their knowledge and expertise, as well as all the necessary software that made this tutorial possible. Firstly, let's take a look at some of the things you're going to need. Now, your setup may differ to mine. You may be using a different headset or base stations, so you may have to do things a little differently, although everything else should be pretty much the same. For a trouble-free setup, I've been proactive and researched many of the common problems associated with setting up the Index controllers, more importantly the base stations. So I've also done my best to mitigate any issues I'm likely to encounter and purchased extra items such as power extension cables and a USB 2 hub. More on that later. Let me just point out, this tutorial is geared more towards the HP Reverb G2, using version 2 Valve branded base stations for SteamVR tracking. However, I see no reason why this wouldn't work with other headsets such as the HTC Vive, Oculus Quest or the Rift S. In regards to base station compatibility, you could also use the HTC Vive base stations, if you happen to have a couple kicking around, that is. A word of caution though, you can't mix version 1.0 base stations with version 2.0 Valve branded base stations. Just make sure they're both the same brand and version, either version 1 or version 2. Okay, let's get into the meat and start off by unboxing the base stations. Now, I only have two, which is the minimum recommended for most room scale play areas and should be adequate for my room as it's only 3 meters square. May I also point out this setup doesn't come cheap. You're looking at anywhere between £140 to £200 per base station. Then there's £260 for the Index controllers, another £70 for the SteamVR wireless dongles, as well as £25 for all the other miscellaneous items, should they be required. And that's if you're fortunate enough to get your hands on all of this. I had to purchase the base stations and controllers on eBay, costing me almost £800. Having said that, they are new, so I don't anticipate any problems. The all-in cost, including the G2 headset and HP's 3-year no-quibble exchange warranty, was £1,480. Whoa, hey, hang on there, I hear you say. Why not just buy the Valve Index and save yourself 500 quid? Yes, and you'd be right, but there is method to my madness, which I'll reveal in another video, so be sure not to miss it and make sure you subscribe. Okay, so here's the first base station. Lighter than I thought, actually. Now I think I'll remove the protective sticker later on, once it's all fitted. There's a threaded hole on the bottom for mounting the bracket, as well as one on the back. And below that there's a micro USB data port for updating the firmware, and to the left of that there's the power port for connecting the power cable. Word of caution here, please be very careful when handling these. They're pretty high-tech devices with delicate internal components and moving mechanisms, so you don't want to go knocking them about, or drop it for that matter. Fixed lasers sweep 100 times a second to track photonic sensors on the controllers as well as the headset, although headset wise we'll be using the Reverb G2 instead. Right, let's open up the back part. Okay, this looks like the mounting bracket. There's a rubber strip down each side to prevent the bracket from scuffing the wall. Okay, screw caps. I guess they're for hiding the fixings. Let's pop that back in. Let's see how flexible the ball joint is. Nice, there's a fair range of movement there. Although I do have these brackets as a backup. It really bugs me as to why almost everything computer related is black. I mean, look at these brackets. They look nice in white. It's just a shame the brackets and base stations aren't white as well. Now, what's in here? We have the fixings, so 2 raw plugs and 2 black screws. And in the box, okay, a power block and a 2 and 3 pin adapter. Let me just connect that one. Yep, that appears to have clipped in nicely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, let's have a look at this. Hello worlds. Nice. I like that. Very appropriate. Okay, a setup guide in the various languages by the looks of it. A cleaning cloth. There's also a safety, maintenance and warranty manual. I'll definitely be reading that. Good stuff. I'll run my eyes over that a little later on. Let me put that to one side. Right, let's whip this out.
No!
Yes! Okay, right. So this looks like the cable. Let's open it. Okay, hopefully it's long enough. Don't
What?
Interrupting, love, that's what. Apparently it's supposed to be 5 meters long. Let's see. I can still hear you. Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. Well, at least the cable's long enough to reach the front, which is the closest corner just right of my PC. As opposed to the opposite corner, the cable isn't going to be long enough. That's where this power extension cable comes in. Although at 5.5 meters long, it's a little overkill. However, I do have a smaller 2 meter cable, so I'll probably end up using that. I'll hide the cables and electrical trunking so everything's neat and tidy. You can buy this on Amazon for a few quid. Failing that, it's a common item, so most hardware stores should sell it. Don't worry if you're a little unsure where to get everything. I've listed everything needed for this build and added them in the description below. Right, who's next? Come on you, let's slice you open. Nice. well presented. Let's take a look at this. What the? It's stuck on there well. Oh, I see, Velcro. Okay, let's see what's in it. Again, we've got the typical setup guides in various languages. A health and safety stroke warranty booklet. I'll certainly run my eyes over that a little later on. Okay, this must be the charging cable. Good. One for each controller. I like the way it's neatly packaged in a cardboard sleeve. Let's take a look. Okay, so we've got a USB Type-C on one end and the typical USB adapter on the other for charging via the PC or by a USB plug. Alternatively, you could buy one of these neat looking charger stands, as if I haven't spent enough money already. Okay, this looks like a lanyard, one for each controller. I don't think I'll bother with these. Nevertheless, they're there should I change my mind. Now, let's take a look at the controllers, or knuckles as they're sometimes referred to. Nice, they feel good. Quite heavy, mind you. Certainly compared to an Oculus controller. Then again, there's a lot more to the Index controllers. They definitely feel well built and robust. I simply love the design and ergonomics. Weight wise, let's see how it compares to a G2 controller. Yes, again there's definitely a noticeable difference in weight. The Index controllers are definitely heavier, however they're not heavy enough to hinder gameplay in any way. I'm sure I'll get used to it. Right, let me quickly grab the user guide. I see, right. So this is the adjustment mechanism for rotating the primary knuckle arm. Okay, I see. You push the top part in, which allows it to be rotated to any of these 4 positions. Right, so for large hands, the lower notches, and for smaller hands further up. Let me put that on the second notch down, I think. Okay, let's put it on and adjust the tension using the adjustment strap and see how it feels. Comfortable. Cups the hand nicely and feels secure. The trigger click is smooth and slick. The buttons feel good to the touch. Their placement does feel somewhat strange, mainly the distance between the joystick and the buttons, certainly compared to the other controllers I've used. Then again, they're still well within reach. Having said that, the way in which the hand strap securely grips the hand, it does make it awkward to reach the system menu button with my thumb. Very awkward. I just wish I had a 1-inch thumb now. Oh, and a 12-inch cock.
Yeah, you wish.
I'll also need to adapt and get used to not having a grip button, as these controllers have sensors that detect your grip. Never mind, I'm sure it won't take long to get used to them. In fact, I'm really looking forward to seeing how well they work. Okay, let me quickly whack them on charge for later on. Okay, so now I've touched base on the controllers, base stations and other bits and bobs, let's take a look at the next item. It's a small package.
That's what I said.
Anyway, let's take a butcher's at them. So what are these and what do we need them for, I hear you ask? Well, good question. These are wireless receivers, or dongles for a better word. These particular USB dongles were purchased from Virtual Builds. I've put a link in the description below should you want to purchase the same ones. Having said that, you could purchase HTC Vive dongles from Tundra Labs, or the Steam Watchman dongles. Essentially, these dongles work in pretty much the same way as the ones I have, in that they're fully compatible with the Valve Index controllers, more importantly, SteamVR. If you have difficulty in buying these dongles, you may want to try eBay, although you'll probably end up paying a premium for them. You will also need 2 of these dongles, one for each controller. May I also point out, these aren't just any ordinary Bluetooth dongles. The firmware in these dongles are preloaded to work seamlessly with SteamVR tracking right out the box. Later on, I'll pair these with the Valve Index controllers. Hopefully they both work. I guess you're wondering why I have a USB 2 hub and a USB extension cable, right? Well, without getting into too much depth, let me quickly explain. Although USB 3.0 and 3.1 has an advantage over USB 2 in regards to speed, the noise they emit from their data spectrum can be high, causing communication issues with Wi-Fi or interference, to use a better word, specifically the 2.4 or 2.5 GHz band, common with many of today's Wi-Fi routers. So it's quite possible that if these wireless dongles are plugged into a USB 3 port, they could pick up broadband noise, resulting in a drop in throughput on the wireless link. To be honest, there's potentially many variables that may or may not affect the signal, so to be on the safe side and to mitigate any issues further down the line, I'll be plugging my dongles into USB 2 ports. Having said that, you could log into your wireless router and disable the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi completely. Just be careful though, many home devices are dependent on the 2.4 GHz connection, so disabling it may disrupt devices that use it, such as this doorbell for example. In fact, the Index controllers also use the 2.4 GHz frequency, so it's probably not a good idea anyway, and better off sticking with the USB 2. That brings me back to why I'm showing you this hub. If you don't have enough USB 2 ports on the front or rear of your PC, you can plug the hub into a USB port, then by using a 1 or 2 meter USB 2 extension cable, you should be able to separate the 2 dongles far enough apart so there's no interference. Now, I'm lucky enough to have several USB 2 ports, so I intend to plug one of the dongles into this USB 2 port on the front panel of the PC, and the other will be connected to a USB 2 port on the rear via a USB 2 extension cable, separating the 2 dongles by about 1.5 meters. Furthermore, to make things nice and neat, everything will be housed in trunken, then fitted to the wall. I know it sounds like a lot of hard work, but I'd prefer to do this now rather than spending hours and hours of stressful troubleshooting later on. Okay, with that out the way, let's go ahead and fit the 2 base stations. Firstly, let me quickly point out that the base stations need to be above head height, so at least 6.5 feet or 2 meters off the floor, positioned no more than 16 feet or 5 meters apart, and should be placed diagonally opposite to one another and angled down towards the play area by 30 to 45 degrees. Right, there's no bracket for this corner, so let me drill a couple of holes. Raw plugs in. Right, looking good. Now, let's grab the bracket and screw it to the wall. Let me just unscrew the ball socket joint from the bracket. Right, tighten the screws. Now, as far as these screw caps are concerned, they're not made for slotting into the screws themselves. Never mind, the screws are black anyway. Now, all I need is a little trunking to hide the wire. Let me get the wire in there. Brilliant. and push on the covers. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, let's get the base station screwed on. I need to attach the ball and socket joint first. Let me plug in the power cable. Let's see. Okay, a little fiddly, but got there in the end. Let's take that off. Looks nice. Now, in regards to the other bracket, diagonally adjacent to this one, there's already a bracket from a previous installation I did for an Oculus Rift sensor. So, all I need to do here is lay the wire through the existing trunking and screw on the base station. Let's remove this. Right, now I just need to get the angle right and ensure both base stations point towards the play space. That'll do, I think. I can always tweak it later. Okay, let's power up those base stations. Hopefully we get a green light. That's one. Okay, flashing blue. Yes, we have a green light. Right, base station number 2. Phew, thank God for that. I'm really glad they're both green. The colour you don't want to see is red. If you do, you'll probably end up having to replace it and you'll need to contact Steam support. If you happen to see a blue light, it's usually because the base stations aren't stable or encountering vibrations. So just be sure it's in a stable location and on a surface that's not prone to shaking or vibration. Having said that, if you've mounted them to a wall and they're fully tightened and secure, you shouldn't have any issues with vibration anyway. Unless of course there happens to be an earthquake, in which case you'll probably be under the desk by that time anyway. Let me just quickly check for noise. I know some people mentioned of loud humming sounds emitting from them. Well, these appear to be perfectly silent. I can't really hear anything at all. Now, I'm always a little reluctant about updating firmware, so I'm not going to update the firmware unless I run into problems. And because these base stations are new, I'm assuming they have the most recent firmware already installed. For those of you with version 1 HTC lighthouses, your guess is as good as mine. You'll just have to do a little research of your own to find out whether a firmware update is necessary and how to do it. Right, let me quickly mention that if you intend on using a lower version base station, version 1.0, and you're just using a single base station, it needs to be set to channel A. Not that I'd recommend using a single base station anyway. If you happen to be using 2 version 1.0 base stations, they'll need to be set to channel B and C. I'll show you how to get to these settings in a minute, unless of course I forget. May I also point out not to update version 1 lighthouses, as this will likely brick them. If you happen to brick them, I managed to find this useful post on Reddit, posted by Life Explorer 321. I've provided a link to his post in the description below. In our setup scenario, we're using version 2 base stations, so we don't have to worry about mucking around with changing channels. Right, that's pretty much the brunt of it. Now it's just a case of checking a few things, installing some software and pairing up our new controllers with the dongles. Now, I'm assuming you're watching this because you have the HP Reverb G2 with the sole purpose of replacing your existing controllers with the index controllers. Having said that, if you happen to own a different headset such as the HTC Vive, Oculus Quest or Rift S, the principle is basically the same. Hopefully you've already set up your G2 within the Windows Mixed Reality portal, paired your controllers and set their height, set up your play area, installed Steam and Windows Mixed Reality for SteamVR. If you haven't, or a little unsure whether you've set everything up correctly, I recommend you watch our other video setting up the G2, link down in the description below. All set up then? Okay, we're good to go. Firstly, quite important in this, make sure your controller tracking is working well. Even simple things like low battery power can cause tracking issues, so make sure the batteries have enough juice in them. Incorrect lighting can also cause controller tracking issues such as bright sunlight. Again, let me reiterate, if your controller tracking is poor, you may experience controller drift when they're finally paired with the base station tracking. May I also point out, mirrors as well as shiny surfaces can also play havoc with the base stations. On rare occasions, even the colour of your walls and floor can have adverse effects on tracking. Okay, enough said, let's quickly check our Chaperone in SteamVR. Essentially, this will use the same play boundary that you originally set up within the Mixed Reality portal. Okay, fire up Steam. Click on the SteamVR icon in the top right corner. The Mixed Reality portal should open up at the same time. Just ignore this. Select the burger menu from the status window. Scroll down and click on Settings. Select Play Area and just make sure the Chaperone settings match what you'd originally set up, such as whether the floor bounds are shown, the wall height, activation distance and the floor colour and background. To be honest, the Chaperone system in SteamVR is a little rudimentary in my opinion. You probably shouldn't need to change anything here anyway, but just in case you do, at least you know where to find it. I'll talk more on boundaries and play space later on. It's quite possible you'll never need to go back here anyway. Well, providing you install everything mentioned in this video. Okay, exit out of everything related to VR. So close down SteamVR, Steam and the Mixed Reality portal. Okay, we now need to install a free piece of software called OpenVR Space Calibrator. The software helps you to use tracked VR devices from various manufacturers. Essentially, it assists and aligns multiple tracking systems, such as our index controllers and base stations, within our play space. Right, let's download and install OpenVR Space Calibrator. Find the program using Google. Search for OpenVR Space Calibrator. By the way, many thanks to Pushrax for all his hard work in developing this and allowing it to be downloaded for free. Okay, scroll down to the Install section to get the latest release. Just to point out, version 1.2 was the latest version at the time of recording this. Right, let's click the exe file to download it. If you happen to get a Windows protection prompt, I wouldn't worry too much about it. It simply means the software hasn't been approved by Microsoft. Click More Info and select Run Anyway. Choose Yes if you get another Windows prompt. Click I agree. Then click Install. And close it when complete. Right, let's grab a dongle and plug it in. In this scenario, I'm plugging mine via a USB extension cable. This cable simply connects to a USB 2 port on the rear of my PC, which separates the two dongles by about 1.5 meters in order to mitigate any interference. Next, fire up Steam and SteamVR. The SteamVR status window will open up on the desktop, as well as the Mixed Reality portal, so just minimize it or move it out the way. Select the burger icon to extend the menu, select Devices and Pair Controller. If you get this error, you either haven't plugged in your dongle or it can't be detected, so try another USB 2 port or restart your PC. Failing that, the dongle may be faulty. If the dongle is working, a screen appears prompting you for the kind of controller or device you want to pair. If it doesn't, the OpenVR Space Calibrator didn't install correctly, so you may want to try restarting your PC. Failing that, try reinstalling the software, making sure nothing's blocking the installation process. Now it's just a case of following the on-screen instructions to pair the first controller. Let's pair the left controller first. To pair it, hold down the B button and the system menu button until the light on the controller begins blinking blue. It should then go a solid green. When finished, click Done. Great. Now we don't want to go and pair the other controller just yet, so don't go clicking it. Now turn off the left index controller by pressing and holding down the system menu button and unplug the dongle. Please make sure you do this. Now plug the other dongle into a different USB 2 port. I'm using a USB 2 port on the front of my PC for pairing the right controller. Now it's just a case of repeating what we did for the left controller, but this time with the right index controller. Once again, select the burger icon, select Devices, Pair Controller, and select Pair Another Controller. And pair. If you're having trouble pairing, try another USB 2 port and try again. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, leave that dongle plugged in and plug the first dongle back into the USB 2 port and turn on the first index controller you paired. That should be the left controller if you followed my instructions. You should see it appear in the SteamVR status window. You may also have to update your controllers. Just right click on the controller with the exclamation mark and select Update Device. Just make sure you plug the controller into a USB 2 port using the supplied charging cable. Just to point out, I couldn't get my controllers to update unless it was plugged into a USB 2 port. This worked fine. Do the same with the other controller, making sure it's turned on and plugged into a USB 2 port. When complete, unplug the controller from the USB 2 port and turn on your other controller, and they will both appear in the SteamVR status window. Now anytime you turn on your controllers, SteamVR should automatically open. Let me just touch base on something, pardon the pun. For those of you who happen to be using version 1 base stations and they don't show up, or you keep seeing them disappear and reappear, it's likely that they're on wrong channels. If so, navigate to the SteamVR status window, select the burger icon, Devices, and select Base Station Settings. However, you will need a Bluetooth enabled PC if you intend on doing this wirelessly. Failing that, use a mini USB data cable and plug the base station into a USB port. If your PC is capable of Bluetooth and you're having difficulties discovering your base stations, I cover this later on in this video, so make sure you keep watching. If you can connect via Bluetooth, it's just a case of waiting for SteamVR to identify nearby base stations. Then either select automatic configuration or manually change each channel by clicking on it. In my scenario, there's no issues whatsoever with these base stations. Okay, all good. Now let's exit SteamVR so our changes are stored. Make sure your base stations are turned on. Right, now we need to fire up SteamVR again, but this time wearing our headset with our original controllers turned on. So power up the G2 controllers and put on your headset. The Space Calibrator should automatically open. If not, select the menu button on the G2 controller to bring up the Steam overlay window and select the Space Calibrator button. In the top left side of the Space Calibrator screen, you should be shown your Windows mixed reality devices. So the headset and our G2 controllers. The index controllers picked up by the base stations or lighthouses will appear to the right. I'll get to that in a minute. Now turn on your index controllers. Now we've activated the controllers, we can see them to the right. Now, just to point out, both the left and right side have a drop-down menu. Sometimes you may have to manually pick the universe you want to use. What you see here is correct. Next, grab the right G2 controller as well as the right index controller. This is my personal preference solely because I'm right-handed, but you could use the left-hand controllers. Next, try to hold them in the same hand. A bit of PVC tape or a rubber band may help if you're finding it difficult. Now, important note here, make sure the tracking ring on the G2 controller and the sensor arc on the index controller aren't being blocked from your headset or base stations. Click Copy Chaperone Bounds to Profile. Now you need to make sure you calibrate the right G2 controller with the right index controller. To determine which controllers you're holding, select a controller from the top left window and choose Identify Selected Devices. You should feel the controller vibrate in your hand. Now, select the right index controller from the top right. I'm just double checking it. Great. For the option Calibration Speed, choose Very Slow and click Start Calibration. Now, with both controllers in your hand, start slowly moving your hand around in a figure 8 pattern whilst moving them back and forth, in and out, while rotating your torso, remembering that your headset needs to be able to see the G2 controller while you're doing this. So don't start swinging your arms frantically in the air or behind your back. After about 30 seconds or so, the index controller should pop into place over the G2 controller, and the Space Calibrator window should read Finished Calibration, Profile Saved. Phew! Okay, let's close that. Great, so that's the calibration saved. Just to point out, you only need to calibrate one controller, simply because you're not actually calibrating the controllers as such. You're actually calibrating the Windows Mixed Reality and SteamVR play spaces. Also, it's quite common that only one of the controllers shows up when you're outside of the SteamVR menu. Just exit out of SteamVR, turn off your G2 controllers and turn on both your index controllers prior to launching SteamVR, and both will show up where they normally should. I must say the tracking is simply amazing. I can move my hands very fast without any loss of tracking whatsoever. Even above my head. Wow, it's really good. An expensive purchase, mind you. Great, so from now on, anytime I want to launch SteamVR, it's just a case of turning on the index controllers, providing Steam is running in the background, and you should be good to go. Just so you know, if for any reason you decide you want to use your old controllers, you still can. Just turn off your index controllers, exit out of SteamVR and turn on your old controllers prior to reopening SteamVR. OK, next we're going to disable the play boundary for Windows Mixed Reality in favour of the SteamVR Chaperone. So we need to download another piece of software called OpenVR Advanced Settings. Again, it's free and available to download from Steam. Link in description below. The version 5.3.1 includes the default bindings for the Reverb G2, allowing you to toggle between the game input and the OVR Advanced Settings input, allowing only one to be active at any one time, similar to a function on a keyboard. To find OVR Advanced Settings, just search Steam. As I mentioned, although the software is free, I do recommend you pay for it. The team that created this app, Ovarus, worked very hard in developing this, so by making a donation, small or large, can fund further development and improvements. Just remember, it's people like this that help us better experience VR, so please be a good Samaritan and support them by making a donation. Simply choose the amount you'd like to donate. Personally, I think it's worth every penny, so I'm going to make a large donation. No, I'm going to make a very large donation. It's a very useful tool. You can adjust your height, rotation, key bindings, audio and much more. I've also provided some tips on the app. Again, you'll find these in the description below. Okay, let's install it. Now, I don't want to install it in my game library, so I'm choosing the default location. Great, I can see it in my library now. Okay, headset on, let's navigate back to the Space Calibrator. Okay, click on Copy Chaperone Bounds to Profile and uncheck Paste Chaperone Bounds automatically. May I also point out it's also an add-on to the app we just downloaded and installed and can be found next to Space Calibrator. Now launch OVR Advanced Settings either from within the SteamVR home or via your Steam library. Okay, so with your headset on and within the OVR Advanced Settings, under Settings, you have the ability to enable and disable various functions, such as Auto Start. There's also an option for allowing external app chaperone edits. However, just be careful when selecting this one. Although it incorporates changes to the Chaperone and Universe Center made by other applications, these changes could come from anywhere, including apps with unpredictable interactions with advanced settings. Therefore, this option opens the potential for chaperone misalignment or corruption. However, it also allows other chaperone tweaking tools to function in tandem with advanced settings, and this option should only be checked if required for compatibility with other apps. May I also point out, changes will only take effect when the offsets and rotation are all 0. Please make sure you investigate what each of these do. Detailed documentation can be found on GitHub explaining their functions in more detail. A link to this can be found in the description below. In this example, I'm going to check the following items: Auto Start, allow external app chaperone edits, and force use SteamVR Chaperone. Then scroll down and select Shut down Ovarus. Now exit SteamVR either via the Steam overlay window, or by closing the small widget, or by clicking on the green VR icon in the corner. Next, make sure your controllers are still on. If not, turn them on. The index controller should now restart SteamVR, opening up the room calibration menu. It's now just a case of setting it up. It's all pretty straightforward. Now there's 3 different options here to establish your height. I know my height, so I'm entering it here. The other option, should you be fortunate enough to have a big enough room, allows you to map out your floor area for setting up your room boundary. Again, this is very straightforward. Well, that's my room setup. Yours no doubt will be slightly different. Once set up, you should end up at the SteamVR home. You should now have a SteamVR Chaperone, similar to that of the boundary you would have originally set up with the G2 headset. Let me just quickly show you and fire up OVR Advanced Settings. You can also have this turned on by default. From the SteamVR status window, select the burger menu, scroll down to Settings, select the tab Startup/Shutdown, select Choose Startup Overlays and turn on OVR Advanced Settings. You'll then need to restart SteamVR. The app will now appear within the SteamVR overlay window as an option. Now let's take a look. I'm not 100% sure what everything does exactly, and this video's long enough already, but I'll take a good look at all the various settings and other options a little later on, and I suggest you do the same. Note, sometimes Windows Mixed Reality rotates the play space it sends to SteamVR by 90 degrees. If you want to fix this temporarily, you can use the Offsets tab within OpenVR Advanced Settings. To properly correct this, you'll need to rotate your play space by 90 degrees using the Chaperone tweak and change the direction of the arrow on the floor. The link to download Chaperone tweak can be found in the description below. You'll then need to use MixedVR Manager to permanently fix the Chaperone. More on MixedVR Manager and Chaperone tweak in a minute. In the Advanced Settings menu, click on the Chaperone tab. Click New Profile and check all the options. Give it a name and click on OK to save it. From now on, if something goes wrong, you should be able to click on your saved profile to get everything back to how it was. Now you can open up the Windows Mixed Reality portal on your PC and switch Room Boundary Visuals to the off position, just as long as you only plan to use SteamVR and not Windows Mixed Reality. Okay, that's about it in a nutshell. You should be good to go. Now each time you start VR, just turn on the index controllers and you'll be launched into SteamVR, bypassing Windows Mixed Reality. Great, so that's basically everything set up apart from a couple of other modifications, and although these aren't really mandatory, we may as well go ahead and set them up anyway. Okay, next we're going to install MixedVR Manager, but first let's take a look and gloss over some of its functions. Probably the best feature of MixedVR Manager is that it manages your base stations, whether that be version 1 or in my case version 2. So there's no need for any special app or smart plugs to turn them off and on for each VR session. It manages the USB port for your headset, so you don't have to unplug and re-plug it back every time. It also manages the Windows Mixed Reality portal, ending it when it's no longer being used, assists with SteamVR room setup, ending any unnecessary processes when it launches, looks after your SteamVR home settings and maintains your Chaperone Bounds and play space. In order for this to work, you'll need a PC with Bluetooth capabilities or a Bluetooth dongle. 5 dongles won't work. If your PC is capable of Bluetooth and you're having difficulties discovering your base stations, you may want to try installing this. Then it's just a case of going to your Bluetooth settings, making sure Bluetooth is turned on, select Add Bluetooth Device and click on Bluetooth. Windows will then attempt to search for Bluetooth devices. Then it's just a case of entering the PIN number of the base station. You can find this on the rear of your base stations. It's the model number you want. It's quite possible you have the same model if you're using version 2 Valve base stations. It's then a case of entering the PIN and clicking Connect. May I also point out you should only have to do this to one of your base stations. Okay, there's a little bit more. Let's get started. In the taskbar, search for UAC. Click Change User Account Control Settings. Now turn off UAC, dragging the slider down to Never Notify. You may be prompted to confirm your selection or enter an administrator password. Then reboot your computer for the change to take effect. Alternatively, if you'd rather keep these notification dialogues on for other apps, you can skip this part. However, you'll need to click yes on the dialogue every time it pops up. Personally, I didn't change the UAC setting on my PC as I want to see all my prompt messages. Find and install MixedVR Manager. Click the shortcut link from the list, then click the download link. The link to this can be found in the description below. Alternatively, you can download version 1.3.2 directly from our website. Just do a search and you'll find it. A big thanks to Monster Mac and Tetracyclic for this, by the way. It's much appreciated. Unzip the zip file and place the folder wherever you like. I'm extracting mine to my user profile. Creating a new folder called MVRM, short for MixedVR Manager. You can see the folder I've created here. Next, navigate to the unzip folder, right click on the config.bat file and click on Edit, modifying line 12 to your personal base station's MAC addresses. The description at the top explains how to obtain the base station's MAC address. If you happen to own an Android device, you can download an app from the Google Play Store, shown here. The other way to obtain the MAC address for your base stations is to open the command prompt and run lighthousekeeper.exe. To do this, search for command. Right click it and select Run as Administrator. Select Yes if prompted. The command prompt should appear. From here, you need to navigate to the directory where you extracted the zip file, as I showed you previously. So in my case, and by using the command interface, I need to get to this folder, and from within it, the bin folder. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's attempt to discover the MAC addresses in order to turn on Bluetooth. Just make sure no malware programs are running in the background. Now, from within the command interface, type in the destination to your bin folder and hit return. If you get the error the system cannot find the path specified, then check your type. That's better. Next, and in order to run the Lighthouse Keeper, you'll need to run this. Type it in and hit return. Note, sometimes you may have to run the discover command several times before you get both MAC addresses. Now, I've had no luck after 3 tries, so I'm going to restart my PC. Okay, let's try the command prompt again. No luck. Okay, I have an Android device, so I'll try the app suggested in the config file and install it on my mobile. Great, that worked. Really easy actually. Right, these are my MAC addresses here. I've added them to Notepad as I need to copy and paste them into the config file. Now, I'm assuming you still have the config.bat file open. If so, add the MAC addresses to your base stations on line 12. You may also need to change line 15 to be the version of your base stations. In my case, I have version 2.0 index base stations, so there's no need for me to change this. For those using HTC version 1.0 base stations, you'll need to change the value to 1.0. Okay, let me change that back before I forget. Now, if you don't want your headset to be disabled and you'd rather it stay on all the time, just select the value on the end of this line to false in the config.bat file. I'd recommend reading all the notes in the config file, as there are a few other things you can change here. Having said that, don't go changing anything you're unsure of. Right, hopefully you've managed to get your MAC addresses and set your base station version. Great. OK, within the folder, right click on MixedVR Manager Launcher.vbs and click Copy. Next, press the Windows logo key and R, type shell:*startup and click OK. Right click inside the window that was opened and select Paste Shortcut. Let me reiterate, Paste Shortcut, not Paste. Now restart your computer. Once Windows has fully loaded, make sure Steam is running and turn on an index controller. Wait for SteamVR to automatically launch. Click Yes to the pop-up prompt, unless of course you've turned this feature off from within your UAC settings. Then quit SteamVR and launch SteamVR again. Then exit SteamVR from within your headset. Maintaining SteamVR Home. Now, you don't have to do this right away, but once you've set up your SteamVR Home exactly as you'd like, take off your headset but don't close SteamVR. Next, navigate to here. Now right click the Save folder, copy it and paste it into the user data directory in MixedVR Manager, so the folder we were in before. If you're unsure how to navigate there or having difficulty finding the save folder, just search your local C drive for Steam Tours and hit return. It may take a minute or so, but Windows should find the path to it, then just double click on it and copy the save folder. Now you've done that, the MixedVR Manager will automatically restore it every time you launch SteamVR. Maintaining SteamVR Chaperone Bounds. It's recommended you use Chaperone Tweak to make your Chaperone match up exactly with your physical space. The Chaperone is accessible from within the OpenVR Advanced settings just below SteamVR. More information on its features, as well as matching your physical space, can be found in the description below. Once downloaded and installed, you can finely tune your Chaperone. You can also download this program from our website. Once downloaded and unzipped, view the README file. There's some handy instructions in there. I'm not going to show you how to do this in this video, maybe in another one. Anyway, once you've perfected it and without closing SteamVR, take off your headset and copy this file to the user data directory in MixedVR Manager, similar to what we did just a minute ago. Let me quickly show you. That's it. Now the MixedVR Manager will automatically restore your Chaperone every time you launch SteamVR. Please note that if you're a MixedVR user, anytime you redo your headset room setup, you'll have to adjust your Chaperone and play space. Then you'll have to recopy and paste the file to keep things lined up perfectly. Well, that's it for the video on setting up the Valve Index controllers. We really hope you found this video helpful and everything works out for you. If you have any tips of your own and you'd like to share them with others, please add your comment or suggestions in the description below. Links to all our other videos related to the Reverb G2 can also be found in the description below. Oh, and be sure not to miss the next video, the review, where I'll be strapping the G2 onto my head and performing all those important tests, such as resolution, field of view, and how well the tracking works in direct comparison to the G2 controllers. Not to mention various tweaks on how to get the best from your headset and much more. Please do leave a like if you like this video and be sure to subscribe and click on the bell icon to get notified should you want to receive future content. Alternatively, why not join VR1 and interact with other VR gaming enthusiasts at vr1.co.uk vr.com/join. Link below. Please feel free to leave a comment, as we'd love to see what you have to say. Thanks for watching.
Virtual reality here, and I'll give you some real reality interrupting my foot.